Shalom and greetings in the name of Yahwah. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name, singular tense, none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Ladies of the United States and other nations that might be tuning in, this program is dedicated to us. As the aged woman, that would be me, to teach the younger women, that might be some of you. Please know that I have 8 fingers and 2 thumbs pointed back in my direction, and as I teach and share with you, I am reminded of my position as a woman and my place in that I am to abide according to the word of Yahwah, the holy word of Yahwah. All right, had something come up this past Shabbat. My husband asked the women to examine a certain verse, and he told us that we were not allowed to talk to each other and compare notes, to keep it a secret. So I'm recording this with nobody around, and by the time you hear this, we will have already shared this subject. I have to say that this is the first time I've ever really examined just one little single verse like this and came up with 6 pages full of good stuff. And the verse that my husband asked the women to dissect and examine is 1 Peter 3 and 6. All right. But for you that are tuning in for the first time, I will be reading from a King James Version. However, later on down the line, I've got several different kinds of versions that I would like to read. But everywhere I see uppercase LORD, uppercase GOD, and the errors of Jehovah and Jesus, I will properly put back where humans have removed the name of Yahweh. However, in this specific verse, there's not even any titles in here, except what Sarah is to call Avraham. All right, 1 Peter 3 and 6. The verse says, even as Sarah obeyed Avraham, calling him Lord or Adon, whose daughters ye are, as long as you do well, and are not afraid with any amazement. Okay, with some of you, since I'm doing this program, I'm going to go ahead and read to you the other verses that I found in different versions, okay? All right, the first version that I'm going to read from, this same verse, is the Complete Jewish Bible. And it says, the way Sarah obeyed Avraham, honoring him as her Lord or Adon. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not succumb to fear. The Basic Bible in English reads, as Sarah was ruled by Avraham, naming him Lord or Adon, whose children you are, if you do well and are not put in fear by any danger. The next version, Revised Standard Version. As Sarah obeyed Avraham, calling him Lord or Adon, and you are now her children if you do right and let nothing terrify you. The New Jerusalem Bible. Okay, I'm only going to read about 4 more of these versions to kind of give you an idea of where we're going with this, because we are going to pick words apart, even break them down in the ancient Hebrew, as far as to tell a story of where we ought to be in our relationship with our natural husband. All right. The New Jerusalem Bible, New Yerushalayim, says, like Sarah, who was obedient to Avraham and called him her Lord or her Adon. You are now her children as long as you live good lives free from fear and worry. The Geneva Bible says, as Sarah obeyed Avraham and called him Sir, of course we know she called him Adon, whose daughters ye are, whiles ye do well, not being afraid of any terror. All right, the MIT version, which is the MacDonald idiomatic translation, reads, Sarah was an example. She deferred to Abraham, calling him leader, or Adon. You became her children by doing what is good and not being intimidated by anything. And my last version is taken from the Peshitta. This is dated 1852, the MRD version, and it says, just as Sarah was subject to Abraham and called him my Lord or my Adon, whose daughters ye are by good works, while ye are not terrified by any fear. All right, with these several versions in mind, let's break down words. All right. KJV, and I'm going to be taking this, some of these things are going to be coming from the Greek, but then I'm going back into the Hebrew to give it a little bit more depth. Please know, ladies, that your King James Version was written by Hebraic writers. You probably don't think about that much. You forget about it. You probably might have not even crossed your mind. But please know that all of the writers of your King James Version, with the exception of Luke, was a proselyte, and so was Titus. But all the others were writing from a Hebraic mindset in the way Yahweh taught them from the beginning, unless they backslid. Okay? All right. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham. Okay, let's stop right here and look at this word obeyed. And it goes back to the Hebrew root word Shema. Shema means to hear. By the way, the words obey, hear, and keep are all the same Hebrew root word Shema in nearly every case. So this Hebrew root word Shema for obeyed means to hear, listen to, obey. To hear of or concerning, to hear with attention or interest, to listen and give heed. In other words, it's not just you hear something in your ear and you don't do anything about it. Like if your husband asks you to do something or tells you to do something, you just do it. You just do it. Mad or glad. It's like the boy next door. His daddy told him his daddy wanted him to cut grass. And he just, evidently the son didn't like to cut grass. So his daddy told him, he said, you can cut the grass mad or you can cut the grass glad. All right? So when your husband asks you to do something or tells you to do something, you can do it mad or you can do it glad. All right. So let's continue on with some more of this meaning of Shema, which is the Hebrew root word for obeyed or obey. It gets into grant the request, to yield to be obedient. So it's not just something that he told you and you hear it and you don't do anything about it. All right, and then it goes on, it says to be regarded, to be obeyed, to summon, to proclaim. It gets into utter a sound, or to hearken and be obedient, or do it diligently, to obey diligently. All right. Now what I did was I broke this Hebrew root word of Shema down to its primitive Hebrew root word, and it gets a little bit, it brings out a little something else that you may not have thought of, ladies, this, you women who are married. So that Hebrew primitive root word for obeyed gets into its Shema, and it gets into benefiting men, actions or sacred things to Elohim, reverent as becometh holiness. Wow. Obeyed. From the Hebrew perspective, not what you think and not what I think, but what Yahweh's word declares. Now, we're going to break this down some more. I'm going to share with you some of the little bit of kindergarten knowledge that Abba has given me from his Hebrew letters, and the ancient Hebrew now, the ancient Hebrew pictograph. All right, Shema here, or obey, has 3 Hebrew characters reading from right to left. And the first Hebrew character is what's called a sheen. Now, this first Hebrew character means, its literal meaning is teeth. The symbolic meaning for sheen is sharp, consume, devour, or destroy. Okay, this is the first letter. The second letter is a mem. All right, this letter mem, reading again from right to left, its literal meaning is water or waters, but the symbolic meaning is chaotic waters like a mighty ocean, or to come from a water or a womb. And the third character, reading from right to left, for Shema or obey, is the letter ayin. And this letter, its literal meaning is the eye. The symbolic meaning is the sight and or insight. In other words, you can see something with your natural eye, but you perceive, your understanding is from within. All right. Thus, if we put these 3 ancient Hebrew characters together, reading from right to left, these 3 Hebrew characters tell a story about Shema or obey as the relationship of Sarah with her husband or her head, as so. It would be the sharp teeth present to devour or destroy from the womb by watching us with his eyes to ensure our sight or insight remain in the boundaries of obedience. All right, now we started off, this is just the first part of this verse that we read. Even as Sarah obeyed Avraham, calling him Lord. The Hebrew for Lord is Adon. If you're referring to Yahweh as Lord, it would be Adonai. But she called him Adon. So Sarah obeyed Avraham, calling him Lord. Okay, let's stop right here. Calling him. In other words, something articulated from her mouth. She called him Adon. She called him Adon. And why did she did this with her tongue? And she wasn't a smart aleck about it. She wasn't sarcastic about it. She was taught from her youth how to behave herself. From the Hasidic strict sect of Yisrael, in how Yisrael obeyed Yahweh in her tender young years. And this is how she was reared and how she was taught to behave herself toward her, first when she was single, underneath her father's headship. Then when her father gave her, and her father gave her to her husband, then that headship changed. Now Avraham was her head, her leader. And it gets into even quite some more as this little lesson goes on. Now, I want to stop here and interject a few things. The United States was established in the 13 colonies by Israeli-type people. How do you know that? Well, I'm just going to share a couple things with you, all right? It doesn't take much research to do this. It's just about idiot-proof to research this. But one of the first governors of Massachusetts, by the name of William Bradford, as governor, he oversaw the laws that were made for the state. And one of the laws was that you could not participate in pagan Christmas. No paganism. And if you take a look in one of the oldest cemeteries within Massachusetts, you will see upon the tombstone of William Bradford the Yud-Hey Waw-Hey, the name of Yahweh. And it has like a little phrase after it. It's got a little saying with Yahweh on it. I forget what it says, but it's 3 little words. But he honored Yahweh even to have a monument with Yahweh's name written on it on his tombstone. In other words, he honored Yahweh in his life by staying with the commandments, not to learn the way of the heathen. And many of the other states were the same way. But what happened? The redcoats kept coming, Europeans kept coming, and this nation was overtaken by, and this 13 colonies were established. Why? For religious freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from the monarchy of anarchy rule. All right? They wanted to get out from underneath their taxes. They wanted to get out. They wanted freedom of religion to worship Yahweh and not worship the king's gods and idols. Okay, I am persuaded that this nation was established on scriptural principles. Now, I said all that to say this. Here this nation was established years later, 1776, and here we go. As time rolls on, evil seducers are waxing worse and worse, until finally we have a nation that disregards the holy word of Yahweh, throwing out Yahweh's word to inject perversion, filth, making Yahweh's laws of none effect, and making the unholy righteous, and it's not. And it's still not, no matter what laws are made. All right? Because we have these kinds of laws, and women's liberation came in towards the end of the late 1800s, women started getting out of their place. As keeper of the home, the keeper of the home had to work. Well, they had to work because our men went to war. Okay, well, I wonder if this all hasn't been planned for quite so many years. And we're now seeing towards the end of the plan. And it's taken quite so many years to get control of a nation that once adhered and obeyed the word of Yahweh, supported it in every way, in that harlots, prostitution was outlawed, homosexuality was outlawed at one time. You could be put in jail for all of these things. And now everything's okay. It's still filth and stench in the nostrils of Yahweh Almighty. Alright, so we have new laws now. That doesn't change Yahweh's laws. But I'm saying all of this to bring us back to the way Sarah was reared. As a woman, she was reared to reverence her husband. Now, I'll just use me for example, okay? I had good parents. They sent us to school. They sent us to college. They provided a roof over our head. My dad had a good job. We were well taken care of. There wasn't anything that we did not want for, except for the Holy Spirit of Yahweh. I don't remember much about church. I've shared this before. The only thing I can remember about any kind of church when I was coming up is Vacation Bible School, and all I can remember from that is cookies and Kool-Aid. All right. So my parents did the best that they could. They were fine people as far as the world is concerned. They did well in what they did as far as worldly standards were concerned, but they did not teach us scriptural principle, only good moral reasoning. You know, what is the right thing to do according to world standards and not what the word of Yahweh teaches. Therefore, my mother, very intelligent woman, she believed, just as every other woman, that you have equal say-so in your household. And some women think that they have the last say-so in their household. This is not a scriptural principle. The scriptural principle is that your husband has the last say-so in your household, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. If I agree with his final decision or not, my husband has the say-so. And this is where raw gut faith kicks in. if you so to speak, that I can take my petitions to a higher authority and intercede if I believe and know and I know and I know I know that my husband is wrong. And there have been times when I've been right, but there have been more times that I have been wrong. And yet there are still things still weighing in the balances that I'm not sure about, but I have to let Yahweh handle it. Now, I can do it mad or I can do it glad. And to tell you that I've mastered this would be a lie. However, I make my flesh do the right thing, keep my spirit under subjection, and that is difficult. I still live in the flesh. Nevertheless, I don't make excuse. I do not make excuse for my flesh, although I want to. Yahweh's word leaves no excuse for me to have an attitude. When things first start to happen and I see things that are not right, and even if I know things are still not right, and my husband chooses to handle things a certain way, then I must yield to that, obey that. But my carnal nature wants to rise up because I've never been taught from a child to do just that. And many times I've cried before Abba on different major things that have come up in all my 61 years of life. I've cried out to Abba and I say, I want to be the way I want to be the way you want me to be. I want to be the way your word declares for me to be. Yet I have this warring in my human nature that I know must go. And he's there for me as long as I make my flesh do the right thing. And as long as I abide within the boundaries of obedience, I watch Yahweh work for me. And he has done that and made himself manifest to me. He lets me know if maybe on down the line I see, oh, well, that's why you had him do that. Or maybe on down the line he would have dealt with him and said, you shouldn't have done it this way. So even if my husband thinks that he knows what's right, then so be it. I've got to leave it at that because I was created for the man. Women were created for the man, not the man for the woman. So, I'm saying all of this. Sarah called him Lord or Adon in respect, not with a smart aleck attitude. Because nowadays, because we live in a nation that breeds rebellion, it breeds disrespect for authority in the household. It breeds disrespect in a lot of different areas for real, holy, spirited truth. To where women are totally and outrageously out of order to the point where my husband just blatantly just tells the man, you're scared of your wives. You're scared of your wives because you're afraid that they're going to cut you off in your personal life. Now, this is what my husband teaches. And, of course, this kind of shakes the men up a little bit. But nevertheless, women are to abide within the position of obedience, and we've never really been taught that from a child. So, just when I think, I'm going to tell on me, just when I think I've got something whooped, the enemy will come in from an entirely different direction, doing the same old thing, and try to get my spirit out of whack. Nevertheless, Abba sees that I get plenty of training, plenty of practice to do what he says, do what his word says, and he'll deal with my husband Jerry. Yahweh will deal with that man, if he's right or if he's wrong. And so here we have it. Women who claim to have the real Holy Spirit are kind of being really reprogrammed, so to speak. I have to continually strip myself of everything that I grew up in. Let's go back to before we knew Yahweh's name was Yahweh. We thought his name was something else, a J name. And we were reared in my husband and I came from gross darkness into an old-time apostolic holiness, oneness assembly. And the only thing that they missed was keeping the Shabbat, the name of Yahweh, and they believed that the assembly was going to get out of here before the tribulation. So those were the only three things that assembly missed. Otherwise, they taught Hebraically and didn't even know it. So what I'm saying is the women from that bunch, they might have obeyed their husbands, but I would watch through the years they would deceive their husbands. Like if, all right, I'm going to tell this one. I've seen them where they had their cell phone with them and they saw it was their husband and they wouldn't answer their cell phone for them. Or they'd shut their phone off so they wouldn't have to talk to their husband. We don't do that around here. If I see my husband is calling, I answer the phone. Or if I come back in, I check the caller IDs and make sure that he hasn't called. And we answer calls. My husband, number one, and my children come in second. So here we go. I've watched the apostolic Pentecostal holiness type women deceive their husbands. And a deception is the same thing as a lie. Look it up. A deception is the same thing as a lie. This does not show your husband reverence. All right. Calling him Lord or Adon. In other words, the verse reads, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord or Adon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've gotten 8 words long in nearly 27 minutes, and I've just about got to stop this. And I don't know how many rabbit trails I'll run before I get this lesson finished. Nevertheless, again, to reiterate, she called him with reverence and respect, Lord. Not as women do today, Lord, Master, with a tone of voice and an attitude behind it. This is not reverence, and Yahweh sees the thoughts and the intent of a heart. And disrespect to our husband is not right. And I'm not going to tell you that I have not, the times have been far and few and in between, I'll say that. And the times that I have shown disrespect, and my husband brought it to my attention, I've repented. And I've asked him to forgive me. I asked Yahweh to forgive me so that I could go on, that my prayers would not be hindered. Okay, I've got to stop. And we'll take up with this, Yahweh's will, next week, part 2. If you want to know why your God and Messiah is only named Yahweh, please write to Jerry or Kathy. We mail out free audio CDs and scriptural literature on why your God Messiah's name is only Yahweh and how his name was removed from the King James Version. Again, write to Jerry or Kathy. Our mailing address is 775 McDonald Road. That's 775 McDonald Road, Covington, Georgia. Covington, Georgia. That's the United States of America, Georgia. Our zip code is 30014. Again, 30014. Or we invite you to call us at 770-784-0703. Again, 770-784-0703. I don't know if did I give you all my zip code? The zip code is 30014. I think I did. All right. If you have online access, we invite you to go to our website. You'll find links on our website to all my husband's televised programs, and all of our radio programs are recorded. My husband's recordings and my own recordings, along with many other recordings that he's made individually, independently, from here. So to get there, you go www.yahwah, YAHWAH. Again, you must spell Yahweh, YAHWAH, with a little hyphen after Yahweh, Ministries.org. That's Yahweh, YAHWAH, with a little hyphen, Ministries.org. You can watch my husband using your King James Version, and the Hebrew Scriptures show you how that the name of Yahweh has been removed from his word and substituted with these titles and errors. The purpose of my program is to provoke women to study, to provoke women to seek the face of Yahweh, to find our place in his Holy Spirit and abide within the boundaries of obedience until death do us part. Until next week at this same time, may Yahweh richly encourage you women to seek him while he might be found. Shalom.